2340 hours, December 29th, 1944. Over the northern Philippine Islands, the sky holds no moon and no stars. Thick cloud layers seal off the horizon. To the human eye, there is nothing to see, only a dense, suffocating black. This is exactly why the Japanese chose this night. Below the clouds on the island of Muro, two unfinished airstrips are being built in haste. Crushed coral runways, kerosene lamps instead of proper lighting. But to Japanese planners, their existence alone represents a strategic threat. If these airfields are completed, American fighters can operate directly from Muro. From here, they can cover the entire Lingayen Gulf. The coming invasion would be shielded from the air. The timetable would hold. And once the timetable holds, the war cannot be reversed. That is why, for 2 straight weeks, Japanese aircraft have come every night. 334 air raid alerts in 14 days. Not symbolic. Exhaustive. Designed to wear down defenses, to drain crews, to slow construction. Japan does not need to destroy the airfields completely. It only needs to delay them. One bomb into a fuel dump. One strike against sleeping engineers. One interrupted night of construction. Together, that means days lost. And in an amphibious invasion, days are paid for in lives. Inside the cramped cockpit of a P-61 Black Widow, Major Carroll C. Smith sits low in his seat. Behind his right shoulder, the SCR-720 radar glows a pale green. Multiple returns move steadily south at 180 knots. One aircraft, 12 incoming bombers. Less than 3 hours of fuel. Night combat is not about bravery, it is about mathematics. And tonight, radar is about to turn darkness into a place with nowhere left to hide. The night of December 29th, 1944 does not begin with gunfire. It begins with silence. Over the northern reaches of the Philippine Islands, heavy cloud layers seal the sky completely. There is no moon, no stars, no visible horizon. To the human eye, the world dissolves into a single, suffocating shade of black. This is the condition the Japanese planners were waiting for. Beneath that darkness, on the island of Muro, 2 unfinished airfields are being built at a relentless pace. The runways are crude, made of crushed coral. The lighting consists of little more than kerosene lamps placed in a straight line. Yet to Japanese command, the details do not matter. What matters is location. If these airfields are completed, American fighters will be able to operate directly from Muro. From here, they can provide continuous air cover over Lingayen Gulf. The upcoming amphibious invasion will proceed under protection. The timetable will remain intact. And once that timetable holds, Japan will have no practical means of reversing the campaign. That is why Muro has been attacked every night for 2 straight weeks. 334 air raid alerts in 14 days. This is not a symbolic number. It is a weapon, a tool of exhaustion. It drains anti-aircraft crews, forces engineers to work without rest, and keeps thousands of men in a constant state of readiness. Japan does not need to annihilate the airfields. It only needs to slow them down. One bomb into a fuel storage area, one strike into a cluster of sleeping tents, one night where construction is forced to stop. Together, those delays add up. And in an amphibious invasion, days are paid for in blood. By late 1944, American forces have pushed deep into the Philippines. During daylight hours, the air belongs to them. Radar stations, fighter patrols, and overwhelming numbers make Japanese bombing missions costly and unreliable. At night, the equation changes, not because Japan becomes stronger, but because humans see poorly in the dark. Ground-based anti-aircraft guns rely on searchlights. Searchlights require clear skies and time to acquire targets. Low clouds scatter their beams. Rain diffuses their light. Guns fire by sound and estimation, not certainty. Conventional fighters struggle to maintain orientation without a visible horizon. For months, Japanese planners have relied on a simple assumption. Darkness equals safety. That assumption used to be correct, until radar was carried into the sky. On December 26, 1944, the 418th Night Fighter Squadron arrives at Muro, just 3 days before the decisive night. They have flown from New Guinea. Before receiving their new aircraft, they operated with improvised machines. P-70 Havocs, modified P-38 Lightnings, fitted with experimental radar sets. They have learned one critical lesson. Night interception is not dogfighting, it is calculation. They also understand the cost. There are no visual references, no margin for spatial error, only instruments, radio instructions, and absolute trust between the men sharing one aircraft. Their new machine is the P-61 Black Widow. This is not a converted fighter. It is the first American aircraft designed from the ground up for night combat. Large airframe, twin Pratt and Whitney R2800 engines, each producing more than 2,000 horsepower, a wingspan of nearly 66 feet, a crew of 3, pilot, gunner, and radar operator. And in the nose, its defining feature, the SCR-720 radar. This system can detect aircraft several miles away in total darkness. It does not depend on moonlight or weather. It responds only to moving metal in open air. To the Japanese bomber crews, this technology is invisible. They have no rear warning radar, no indication they are being tracked, no reason to believe they are not alone. Among the pilots of the 418th, Carroll C. Smith is not a celebrity. He is 26 years old. He has flown 43 combat missions. He has 4 confirmed victories to his name. He is not driven by recognition. He is the product of 18 months of training in Florida. Instrument flying, radar interception, gunnery without visual contact. Smith understands one thing clearly. Night combat allows no mistakes. A small altitude error can drive an aircraft into the ocean. A misidentified target can mean friendly fire. A delayed decision can allow bombs to fall on sleeping men below. On the night of December 29th, Smith is the only P-61 airborne, 1 aircraft, 1 crew, against a formation of incoming bombers. When radar reports 12 inbound contacts, Smith immediately understands the real problem. Not technology, not firepower, but time. Each interception requires a sequence. Climb, vector, position, fire, confirm, breakaway. Under ideal conditions, that takes roughly 10 minutes. 12 targets means more than 2 hours. The Black Widow carries fuel for roughly 3 hours of flight. That includes the return to base. If Smith chooses the wrong target, if he stays too long on one interception, if he misses and must re-engage, the others will get through. And below him, there are no hardened shelters, only tents, fuel drums, ammunition stacks, men sleeping on the ground. Muro is not a major city. It has no deep water harbor, no factories, no symbolic value, but it sits in exactly the right place. From Muro, P-51 Mustangs and P-47 Thunderbolts can escort invasion forces without refueling. They can patrol the skies above Lingayen Gulf continuously. Without Muro, American fighters must operate from farther away, creating gaps in air coverage at the worst possible moment. For Japan, every night Muro remains operational is a strategic failure. For Smith, every bomb that falls on Muro is a personal one. 23-40 hours. Smith sits low in the cockpit. Behind him, the radar screen glows a muted green. Multiple returns move steadily south. There is no music, no speeches, only the steady hum of engines and the calm voice of the radar operator in his headset. In that moment, war is not loud. It is cold, it is silent, and it is closing fast. There is no alarm inside the cockpit, only the radar operator's voice, calm and even, coming through the headset from the compartment behind. 4 contacts, southbound, different altitudes. Carroll Smith does not answer immediately. He stares into the darkness ahead of the aircraft, where there is no visual confirmation of what he has just been told. For a night fighter pilot, seeing is not a requirement for action. Trusting the radar is. Smith pushes the throttles forward. The twin Pratt and Whitney R2800 engines respond instantly. The sound is deep and controlled. Not a scream, but a steady surge of power. The P-61 Black Widow begins climbing at nearly 2,000 feet per minute. Behind him, on the SCR-720 scope, 4 blips move independently, spread across the sky rather than flying in tight formation. That detail matters. Japanese bombers do not fly close together at night. They disperse to reduce the chance of being destroyed by ground fire. In daylight, this tactic improves survival. At night, it creates a different problem. Each aircraft becomes its own equation. Smith understands that he cannot defend the entire sky. He can only choose. Contact 1, heading 035, Altitude 8,000, range 4 miles. Smith rolls gently, adjusting course in small, deliberate movements. There are no sharp corrections, no wasted motion. Night flying punishes impatience. Outside the canopy, there is nothing. No reflected starlight on the wings, no horizon line, no sense of movement except what the instruments provide. Thick cloud absorbs what little ambient light exists. This is what the Japanese trust. They believe no fighter can find them in conditions like these, that no pilot can approach unseen, that no one can fire accurately without visual contact. The SCR-720 exists to prove them wrong. Radar does not care about darkness. It responds only to metal moving through space. Each pulse goes out, reflects back, and paints a reality invisible to the human eye. Target steady, range 3 miles. Smith activates his own radar display on the instrument panel. It is smaller and simpler than the operator's scope, showing only relative position and distance. It is enough. From this point forward, he no longer needs continuous verbal guidance. The radar operator has done his job. The prey has been delivered. The first target is a Mitsubishi G4M. American crews call it the Betty. It is a fast, long-range medium bomber designed for operations across the vast Pacific. But it carries a fatal flaw. It has no self-sealing fuel tanks. The reason is simple. Japanese designers sacrificed protection to gain range. Every kilogram of armor removed meant more fuel, more distance. In daylight combat, that choice had already turned the Betty into one of the most flammable aircraft in the theater. At night, the weakness is even more dangerous. Smith closes the distance. 2,000 yards, 1,500, 1,000. He still sees nothing. Only at around 500 yards does the shape appear, a darker shadow against slightly lighter cloud, with faint orange exhaust flames trailing from the engines. The Japanese crew has no idea they are being hunted. No rear warning radar, no unusual engine noise, no visual cue that a Black Widow is sliding into position behind them. Smith drops slightly lower, staying beneath the bomber's tail. This is standard night fighter geometry. It minimizes detection and places the guns where they can do the most damage. At your discretion. Smith does not respond. At 350 yards, he squeezes the trigger. 4 Hispano 20mm cannons fire together. The sound is heavy, percussive, filling the airframe. Red tracer rounds tear through the darkness at nearly 3,000 feet per second. Smith fires for only 2 seconds. No more. 48 shells are enough. They punch through the right wing. Fuel ignites instantly. A bright flash blooms, then spreads. The wing disintegrates. The bomber rolls sharply and plunges toward the ocean. Smith pulls away immediately. He does not linger. Kill confirmed. Time noted. Move on. The clock reads 23:57. 1 aircraft destroyed, 11 still inbound, and the fuel needle has already dropped. 3 more contacts still southbound. Smith glances at the fuel gauge. Roughly 15% has been consumed in the first interception. It is within expectation, but there is no reserve. The second target is more than 20 miles away from the first kill. At night, that is a vast distance. Every minute that passes brings the bomber closer to Muro. Smith accelerates beyond 300 miles per hour. Engine noise deepens. Fuel consumption increases sharply. This is the dark side of night interception. Speed buys time. Time costs fuel. If he is slow, bombs will fall. If he is fast, he may not return. The second target appears on radar at a lower altitude. 6,000 feet. Another Betty. Same aircraft, same vulnerability, different conditions. Smith approaches faster, with less margin. There is no time for a perfect setup. He shortens the engagement. 2 seconds. Fire. The bomber erupts and disappears into the darkness below. Time 0019. 2 aircraft destroyed. Fuel remaining, approximately 42%. Under normal circumstances, this is the moment to turn back. Tonight offers no such luxury. 2 more contacts appear. 1 at 9,000 feet, 1 at 4,000. They are separated by more than 8 miles. Smith must choose. If he dives for the lower aircraft first, he will waste time climbing back up. If he climbs now, the lower bomber will move dangerously close to the airfields. There is no perfect answer. Smith chooses the higher target. It is a strategic decision, not a safe one. Climbing burns fuel, but altitude preserves control of the airspace. From above, he can later dive on the remaining bomber faster than fuel alone would allow. The engines strain as the Black Widow climbs to 9,000 feet. The sky ahead remains pitch black. The third target does not fly straight. Radar shows erratic movement. Heading changes. Altitude shifts. Speed higher than expected. This is not a Betty. The third aircraft is a Nakajima Ki-49. American crews call it Helen. It is faster than the Betty, better protected, equipped with defensive guns covering the rear approach. For a night fighter, it is far more dangerous. The Japanese crew knows something is wrong. They cannot see Smith, but they sense a threat. Perhaps they have been warned from the ground. Perhaps they have seen the distant flashes where other bombers disappeared. Whatever the reason, they begin evasive maneuvers. Smith does not approach directly from behind. He offsets to the left and below, exploiting the bomber's blind spot beneath the fuselage. Range closes rapidly. 1,000 yards, 800, 600. At 375 yards, tracer fire streaks past the cockpit. The tail gunner has spotted him. Surprise is gone. Smith holds the target in the gun sight, absorbing the risk. At this distance, hesitation means failure. He fires for 3 seconds, 72 rounds. One engine explodes. The Helen rolls inverted and enters an uncontrolled spin. Smith brakes hard to avoid debris. Time 0029. 3 aircraft destroyed, fuel remaining. Approximately 28%. This is the threshold where most pilots turn back. Smith does not. One contact remains. The low-flying bomber he bypassed earlier. Now it is less than 12 miles from Muro. Smith sees searchlights sweeping the cloud base. Anti-aircraft guns are ready. If this bomber gets through, bombs will fall close to the construction zones. There is no longer a choice. Smith dives. Gravity replaces fuel. The Black Widow accelerates downward. The fuel gauge drops below 25%. The target levels off at around 4,000 feet. Another Betty. Flying straight. No evasive action. Perhaps the crew believes the mission matters more than survival. Perhaps they simply do not know what is hunting them. Smith moves into position behind the bomber. He checks his ammunition. More than 500 rounds remain. Enough for one chance. If he misses, there will be no second attempt. At 350 yards, he fires. 2 seconds. The left wing separates from the fuselage. Fire erupts. The bomber disintegrates and plunges into the sea. Time 0035. 4 bombers destroyed in less than 1 hour. The radar screen empties. The remaining contacts turn away. On the ground, no bombs strike the airfields. Construction continues. The invasion schedule remains unchanged. But for Smith, the night is not over. He looks at the fuel gauge. Roughly 21% remains. Distance to Muro, approximately 18 miles. On paper, he can make it. In reality, any error could kill him. He turns south. And at that moment, the radar picks up a new contact. After the 4th bomber disappears into the darkness below, the sky does not immediately feel calm. It feels empty, not because the battle is over, but because the radar no longer shows the familiar shapes of large, slow, predictable targets. The long returns vanish from the screen. No formations, no steady headings, no aircraft that training manuals were written for. Only black space ahead and a fuel gauge that is now the enemy. Smith eases the P-61 onto a southerly heading. By every tactical measure, the mission is complete. 4 bombers destroyed. The remaining aircraft have turned back. The airfields are safe. Engineers below continue working. If war were judged only by outcomes, this would be the moment to leave. But war does not end with outcomes. It ends with survival. Smith studies the fuel gauge. The needle has slipped into the zone every pilot is taught to avoid. Below 25%. No buffer, no margin. In daylight, low fuel is a risk. At night, over open ocean, it is a suspended death sentence. There is no emergency landing site, no visual reference, no one to witness the fall, only water and darkness. Smith holds an economical cruise setting, power reduced, engine noise softened, but every minute, the needle continues its slow descent. There is no stopping it. Behind him, Philip Porter keeps scanning. The radar remains clear. The silence offers no relief. It sharpens attention. In night combat, what does not appear on the scope can be more dangerous than what does. 0042 hours. Porter breaks the silence. New contact. Smith does not react immediately. He does not change heading. He does not increase speed. He asks only one question. Range? 4 miles, altitude 7,000. The contact lies between Smith and Muro. That changes everything. If it is a bomber and he lets it pass, everything he has just done becomes meaningless. One bomb into a fuel dump or an engineer camp would erase an hour of perfect interception. If it is a fighter, engaging it means accepting a risk he can barely afford. Smith looks at the fuel gauge again. Below 20%. At this level, there is no longer fight and return. There is only fight or never return. Smith adjusts course, not because of orders, not for records, but because war has a cold moral logic. If you allow people to die when you still have the ability to intervene, every personal calculation loses meaning. At less than a mile, Smith sees the aircraft visually. It is not a bomber, no long fuselage and no wide wings, no twin exhaust trails. Instead, it is compact, fast, aggressive, a Nakajima Ki 84. The American name is Frank. This is not the kind of aircraft the P-61 was designed to hunt. The Frank is a single-engine fighter, fast, highly maneuverable, capable of climbing and turning better than the Black Widow in daylight. In visual combat, a skilled Frank pilot would hold the advantage. But this is not daylight. The Ki 84 has no radar. The pilot relies entirely on vision, and vision is useless here. Smith holds one advantage. The enemy does not know where he is. He approaches from behind and slightly below, using the same geometry he used against the bombers. This time, the target is smaller, faster, deadlier. Range 500 yards, Smith does not accelerate. He does not want to announce his presence. He holds steady power and lets the Frank fly straight. This is not a dogfight. It is an execution in silence. At 300 yards, Smith checks the fuel gauge again. Approximately 17%. That number carries a precise meaning. It says he has fuel for one firing pass. If he misses, he must disengage immediately. If he tries to turn back for a second attempt, he will run out of fuel before reaching land. Smith settles the target into the gun sight. The Frank continues straight and level. Perhaps the pilot is searching for returning bombers. Perhaps he believes the danger has passed. Smith feels no triumph. He feels no fear. Only the familiar weight of obligation. This shot has to matter. He squeezes the trigger. 3 seconds, 72 rounds. The shells tear through the tail section and engine cowling. Several strike the propeller shaft. The engine erupts in flame. The fighter rolls sharply and dives. At approximately 3,000 feet, Smith sees something rare that night. A white parachute opening against the black sky. The Japanese pilot has bailed out. Smith does not follow. He turns away immediately. Fuel remaining, 15%. From this moment on, every decision is no longer tactical. It is survival. Smith turns the P-61 toward Muro. Distance remaining, just over 10 miles. At cruise speed, he has less than 25 minutes of flight time. Under ideal conditions, but night flying is never ideal. Porter switches the radar to navigation mode. Instead of searching for aircraft, he tracks coastline contours and landmass returns. Muro appears as a dark shape on the scope. The airfield lies on the southwestern side. Smith begins a gradual descent. Too fast wastes fuel. Too slow risks running out of it. The needle drops to 13%. At 2,000 feet, Smith begins searching for runway lights. He sees them. A faint line of dim yellow points. Uneven, weak, but visible. Smith exhales. Once, and then they vanish. No flicker, no warning, just darkness. All 12 kerosene lamps extinguish at once, whether from a power failure, a ground order, or simple mechanical failure on a newly built field. On the ground, it is an inconvenience. In the air, it erases every safe option. Smith is less than 3 miles from the runway. Altitude 800 feet. Airspeed above 140 knots. No lights, no horizon, no visual reference, Fuel remaining, 9%. Not enough for a go-around, not enough for an alternate field. The nearest backup airstrip is over 90 miles away. Smith has no choice. Porter proposes the only remaining option, landing by radar altimeter. The device measures height above ground by radio reflection, accurate within a few dozen feet. It provides no lateral guidance. It cannot confirm runway alignment. It only tells you how far you are from the ground. Smith agrees. He sets heading by memory and compass. The runway at Muro runs north to south. He approaches from the north, holding 180 degrees. Gear down. 3 green lights. Full flaps. Airspeed drops to 120 knots. Fuel, 7%. Smith sees nothing outside. No sense of closure with the ground. Only numbers descending on the radar altimeter. 300 feet, 200, 150. He reduces power. Descent rate increases. Risk rises. But fuel no longer allows patience. 100 feet, 75, 50. Smith grips the control column tightly, hands stiff, not from fear, but from total concentration. 25 feet. The main wheels strike crushed coral. The impact is harder than standard, but the landing gear holds. 3 seconds later, the nose wheel touches down. Smith applies brakes. The P-61 decelerates rapidly from over 100 knots to 40, then 20. He keeps braking until the aircraft comes to a complete stop. Fuel gauge trembling at 6%. Approximately 3 minutes of flight remaining. Smith shuts down the engines. Silence floods the cockpit. Smith remains seated for several seconds. He does not speak. He does not move. His body is exhausted. His hands shake slightly, not from fear, but from the sudden release of sustained pressure. Porter climbs out of the radar compartment. Neither man speaks at first. There is no need. They know what they have survived. 5 interceptions, 5 destroyed aircraft, 1 blind landing, all in less than 65 minutes. Morning arrives on Muro on December 30th, 1944, like any other morning. There are no sirens, no smoke rising from shattered runways, no burned aircraft wreckage scattered among engineer camps. Only the sound of trucks, the impact of tools on crushed coral, and men continuing their work on little sleep. To the thousands of soldiers on the ground, the night before feels unremarkable. No one knows that 4 bombers never reached their targets. No one realizes how close the airfields came to being erased from the map. And that is the point. The most effective defensive victories leave no visible evidence. Shortly after 1:15, intelligence officers arrive at the dispersal area. They carry notebooks, maps, and questions stripped of emotion. Times, altitudes, headings, aircraft types, impact locations. Carroll Smith answers each one evenly. He does not need notes. The night has already burned itself into his memory as a sequence of numbers and moments. 4 Mitsubishi G-4M bombers, 1 Nakajima Ki-49, 1 Nakajima Ki-84 fighter, all destroyed in less than an hour. These claims are not based on a single crew's word. Ground radar tracked the contacts as they vanished. Coastal observers reported fire falling into the sea. At first light, debris is found exactly where Smith reported it would be. There is no dispute, no uncertainty. The kills are confirmed. Campaign summaries usually record what occurred. Aircraft destroyed, missions flown, targets hit. At Muro, the more important story is what did not occur. No bomb strikes the fuel storage areas. No craters appear on the unfinished runways. No engineers die in their tents. The 2 airfields are completed on schedule. And because of that, there is no change to the invasion date at Lingayen Gulf on January 9th, 1945. When American troops land on the beaches, they are covered from above by fighters launching from airstrips that one night earlier should have been destroyed. No one on those beaches knows Carroll Smith's name. No one needs to. For Smith, the night is not the end. Less than 12 hours after landing blind in total darkness, he flies again. The aircraft is refueled to its full 646 gallons. The cannons are reloaded with 800 rounds. Radar detects a Japanese reconnaissance aircraft at high altitude. This time it is daylight, not total darkness, but the intercept is still guided by radar. Smith climbs to gain altitude, then dives. Another Nakajima Ki-84 is destroyed, his 7th confirmed victory in less than 24 hours. There is no applause, no immediate ceremony, only another entry added to an operational record. 7 victories make Carroll Smith the highest-scoring American night fighter pilot of World War II. A record that is never surpassed, not because others are less capable, but because war rarely concentrates so many life-or-death decisions into such a narrow span of time. The 418th Night Fighter Squadron continues operations in the Philippines for months. In total, the unit scores 18 victories during the war. Smith accounts for nearly 40% of them. The numbers do not describe greatness. They describe scarcity. Night combat rarely offers targets, and when it does, it rarely forgives error. The P-61 Black Widow is not graceful. It is large, heavy, and slower than many daytime fighters, but in darkness, it is unmatched. The SCR-720 radar allows crews to see what eyes cannot. Yet radar does not make decisions. It provides information. Humans decide when to intercept, when to fire, when to disengage, when to turn back even as fuel approaches zero. In 1944, no machine could replace that judgment. After the war ends, Carroll Smith returns to the United States. He leaves the military in 1946. He does not write memoirs. He does not seek attention. He does not turn the night over Muro into a personal legend. He lives as a civilian. The P-61 he flew that night does not survive either. Like most Black Widows, it is dismantled and scrapped. Nose art disappears, kill markings vanish. The aircraft that saved thousands of lives is reduced to metal. Today, only 4 P-61s exist in museums. None of them is Smith's. Wars are remembered for landings, battles, and cities captured. But those moments succeed only because of countless nights that history forgets. Nights when nothing happens. No bombs fall. No fires burn. No screams rise from the ground. Those nights leave no photographs, no dramatic footage, no headlines. Yet they keep campaigns on schedule and armies alive. December 29th, 1944 is one of those nights. When reports are filed and maps folded away, what remains is not heroism, but consequence. An invasion proceeds on time. A campaign avoids delay. A number of casualties never enters any ledger. This victory has no witnesses, and that is why it works. Carroll Smith never asked to be remembered. He did what mathematics, technology, and responsibility demanded in darkness. And sometimes that is how wars are decided, not by loud battles, but by nights when no one realizes they were saved.